Welcome back to the SaaS Playbook. This is the show where B2B founders and leaders sit down for honest, commercially grounded conversations about the part of businesses most people avoid talking about, the revenue side, how you actually build something that brings money predictably instead of hoping it shows up. This episode is brought to you by Hera Digital. If you're a founder who's tired of revenue feeling like guesswork and you want a sales engine that runs predictably, comment the word cook and some in this episode and someone will reach out to you. Today, I'm sitting down with Marvin Tiebout, the founder of Snap to Cook, right here in Perth, WA. And before you hear the name and think recipe app, stop because Marvin will be the first to correct you. He's
Yeah.
building what he calls the household decision-making layer, an AI platform that sits at the exact moment where people decide what to eat with a whole commercial and data engine underneath it with a focus on sustainability. Marvin, welcome to the show and let's get into it.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to your questions.
It feels a little weird because we've had so much conversation prior to the podcast in reverse to most, but I wanted to know and hoping that you can share a bit of your journey prior to Snap to Cook and why did you feel like it was something that you wanted to pursue on your own, a sort of bootstrapping and everything. So leading up to Snap to Cook, what did your career look like and what sort of gave you the skills to really take Snap to Cook to the next level?
Yeah, okay. So all started when I was very, very young. My parents, and my father or my stepfather used to run pubs in the UK, restaurants. My mum started working with him. She was a nurse by trade, and then they started running pubs together, and we actually lived above them. So food has always been a huge part of my life from growing up. I went to college, catering college, went to school obviously, then went into catering college, did a bachelor's in hotel and catering management, and then from there I went into pub management for a little very short amount of time in the UK. I just wanted to get my what they call the BII, which is the British Institute of Innkeeping certification and things, which means that you can run pubs basically in the UK. And then from there, I got jobs with Planet Hollywood, TGI Fridays. So I traveled the world. I was a food and beverage director on a cruise ship over in the Caribbean and the Mediterranean. So yeah, my background's always been in food and things like that. And then when it was as you probably could understand, it's a very single man's game. You're it's different hours and shift work and things like that, especially on the cruise ships. So I was a single and living la vida loca, as they would say, traveling the world and enjoying life. I'm not saying that I don't enjoy life now that I'm married, but all I meant is it was a different type of enjoyment. And then I got married, and one of the things that we came up was you can't carry on in this type of lifestyle. So I transferred into sales where I worked for a company called ADT. No, sorry, this is back in the UK where I worked for Phones for You, sorry. I did work for them for 4 years. Was in the top 25 salespeople in the whole country. I worked there and then became a designate manager. So I'd be in charge of 6 or 7 stores where the managers were off, and I'd go in and either help bring the sales back up if they were struggling as a store, or I'd cover them during holiday periods and things like that when the manager was going on holiday. And then from there, we decided we were having children. So we moved up to Liverpool, where closer to my family, and I got a job with a company called DHL, which is obviously the huge logistics company. I started off working as a courier, and then I got into their key account management side of things, and did that for a couple of years before we emigrated here to lovely Perth, Western Australia. So from there, I worked for ADT when we first moved here, selling security systems in the house and things, but my passion was always food. So at the same time, my eldest was diagnosed on the spectrum with ADHD and ASD. So I needed to do something that I could work around him. So I started a window cleaning business, another really random sounding thing. Started the window cleaning business, built that up so I did rope access and things like that. Owned it, still own it, but had it for 14 years. 12 years, and in that time I wasn't very passionate. I'd lost the passion for what I was doing, and so one day out shopping with my wife, I noticed something in a spud shed and thought to myself, and it was a fruit. I was like, what the hell is that? And what would I do with it? And that's where Snap to Cook, actually, the idea and everything behind Snap to Cook came alive, because I was so intrigued that the fact that there's vegetables and fruits and things, and I've traveled the world, as I say, and I didn't know what it was and what you'd put it into and how you'd make it or anything like that. And I thought, well, there's got to be a way of creating something that'd tell me those things. AI was just obviously starting out. This was 3 years ago. So hence the reason why I initially started to build on Synaptical. And then from there, it's just grown legs, as they say, and it's gone down many different channels. But that was the initial thought process behind it.
So now you mentioned last time we spoke that you're really firm on it not being perceived as a recipe app. But why does that distinction matter so much to you?
One, because it's not a recipe app. We've built it specifically to become the missing layer within the household. I've written a book, The Kitchen Decision Problem. I do a column in the Red X magazine, and that's specifically all about this problem. So what I've discovered, obviously, from building the app and things, is that at 5 o'clock, between 5 and 7, everybody in every household worldwide has the same issue. We go to our fridge, we open it up, and we go, "What am I going to eat?" Whether you've got children, busy lifestyle, you've worked, and what happens at that time is that half the time we'll go for the easiest decision, depending on what the day's been like, and we'll go, "I can't see anything. I'm going to get an Uber." So that is where the app and everything sits. It's nothing to do with specifically to do with recipes. It's actually to help people with that decision, and that's where we've created it, and that's where we are sitting within the the food ecosystem, so to speak. There's plenty of recipe apps out there that always helping you with actually just making food and stuff like that, but we're actually there to help you make a decision, because generally that is where food waste, which is one of the big things that we work on, food waste, food costing, because obviously if you've already got food in and then you're deciding to go and get an Uber Eats or something like that, or going for a takeout or going out for a meal somewhere, that's actually wasting the food half the time that you've got in your own fridge. So that's where we are focusing more than anything else on not just being a recipe app.
But not only that, I feel like Stamp to Cook is unique because there's so many focal layers. And what I mean by that it I think initially it was a decision making app or an app to help you
Yeah,
make those decisions. And then it cascades down to being a food waste reduction perspective. And then it went to an education layer perspective because it really food waste and I guess the management of that really comes down to the education piece. And we've obviously spoken so much about it, but it really almost everything with most apps is it actually is coming from an education perspective to make meaningful change. And when you layer certain topics like food waste, decision making, and then obviously budget minimizations, it sort of encapsulates everything. But that's probably why I can understand why it feels when people say it's a recipe app, it doesn't feel right. It's almost like a
no,
reverse recipe app, really.
yeah,
Um, and there's just,
I
yeah, like
think
I said, so many layers to it. But you've said that food waste doesn't happen actually at the checkpoint. Now, this is something that's
no,
interesting to me. It happens
yeah,
in
yeah,
the fridge. What is the
biggest place.
rest of the industry getting wrong about where the real problem actually sits?
So to me, one of the things is we have healthcare data, we have nutrition education, the school nutrition programs, and then we have food retail issues data as well. So the missing layer, as I say, is at home at between 5 and 7 when everybody opens the fridge. It doesn't matter what policies you put in place and things like that, and what nutrition programs are out there. Everything comes back to that decision at that time. You've had a long day in work. Every in the morning, you've had your thought process is, "I'm going to cook that tonight," and it might be, as I say, everything's planned out. But when you get home after having a busy day, you might have your kids in the background arguing. You just don't feel up to sort of like making something, or that decision is not as easy as it was at 9:30 in the morning when you were thinking about what you were going to do, and everything seems a little bit harder to do. We generally go back into our shells, so to speak, and go to the easiest decision, which is, I know I'll get something. I'll get something in, because you can't see sometimes the ingredients that you've got in your fridge aren't marrying up to what you're actually thinking first thing in the morning. So that's where we are specifically targeting and understanding, and the data that we are seeing is that we can actually tell you once you've bought those ingredients and you're at home, we know what your recipes that you're cooking, how many recipes specifically, which ones, and then what you're wasting food wise. So that's a missing layer that nobody's actually looked into and nobody's working on within the food industry at all. And I think it's quite a unique area because, as I say, it's where most food waste happens. As I say, you have that best intentions in the morning. you'll see it, you'll decide not to use it, and then the following day, those same ingredients are there. But the following day, they don't look as fresh as what they did the day before. So again, your mind already starts making a decision. I'm going to do something else. It might be a case of that you go and buy new ingredients, or you might go and get, as I say, another takeout, or you might go out for a meal. But that is where most decisions are made at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in front of your own fridge. And that's where most food waste happens because then 3 days later, that food that you had every intention of eating is in your bin because it didn't look as fresh and it didn't look as good. So it then, all if you think about it, that whole point is then making you spend more because you've got the food in your house, but you've gone out and bought more, or you've gone out for a takeout, or I mean, bought in a takeout or gone out for a meal. And then the second day, you've done the same type of thing. And then the third day, fourth day, that food that you had in your fridge that you had every intention of eating is in your bin. So that becomes a big cycle and it's in millions of households worldwide. And that's where we are sitting to try and help people understand that the decision that they are making themselves is what creates most of the food waste, not supermarkets, not the logistics chain or anything like that. It's their actual decision at home in front of their own fridge.
Mm. I think what you said just now is like the actual importance is people when they think about individual households. So you're going to look at your own household and think of that as one single use case, right? But people probably don't think about how if every single person, like if you look on your road, how many households are there? If everyone's doing the same thing every other day, you can sort of start to really comprehend the impact it has. And I like that you pointed out that it's actually not the supermarkets that are the major contributors because you think about every single household in the entire world and how much of an impact that really is as a compounding effect. But like you said, also, is the brain's trained to do that. Oh, I'm just going to do the same patterns. I'm just going to do the same patterns, right? And I think the thing about humans is if it becomes uncomfortable, we're just not going to do it. So the gap there is translating one, making the decision easier for you, but making you aware of that problem and sort of putting it in the forefront. So I think that's and it, you Snap to Cook is the first platform to feature on the SaaS playbook from a hospitality, zero food waste, education, long list perspective, and I think it's a really dynamic. And that's why I think when we first spoke, I was like, this is going to be really, really great for people to actually gain awareness about, if nothing else, that they gain from this podcast. But I think Snap to Cook deserves that attention that it really needs to really grow in Australia, which I think segues perfectly into my next question. Now, it's probably no secret that you've blown up in America, and probably surrounds or the North American market, but not as successful in the Australian or ANZ market. But what do you think is the biggest contributor to that change or that significance?
I think it's to do with the fact that we've done a little bit more, a little bit more marketing in the US, to first and foremost. Not much for everything. We haven't really marketed the app properly as yet. We're just waiting for. We're in the process of doing a revenue, bringing in money and stuff like that. So that's when we're going to start marketing fully. Also, because it's easy. This is going to sound awful, but it's easier to target a country that's unhealthy in certain respects. And sort of like, I know that sounds, and I'm not saying all Americans are unhealthy at all. I'm just saying it's a lot easier to target somebody because they in the respect that they understand more because they can see it happening, and then obviously the cost of living's going up worldwide, all those type of things. So America's just seemed that a little bit easier to target at the start. Now, as I say, it's strange because I live here in Australia. I want my product to be foremost in people's minds here. So it's becoming something that we're concentrating on a lot more. I've got my team discussing it and working out ways that we can actually grow here in Australia. But yeah, the US market's a lot bigger, so it's more in it's probably a case that people take things on board a lot easier than what they do here in Australia. We're very, I suppose, in a way, you've got to have a brand awareness, and people are less trusting at the start when they don't know your brand and understand things. And also the fact that we're trying to re-educate people certain respects, and sometimes people don't want to be re-educated and don't think of themselves as being in that situation. So they look, oh, that's not for me. That's something for somebody else, or that'll help somebody else before it helps me, and not realizing that actually the reason why this should be as successful as I know it can be is because it's for everybody, no matter what age. We're building Snap to Cook Kids, so that can help with the education of younger kids coming through. It means that they'll start cooking with their family. and things like that. So we want to educate kids to eat healthier now, and before it gets to being 20, 30 years and being in my situation where you're then going to the doctor saying, what's wrong? And they're saying, well, you've eaten this over the last 10, 15 years and it was processed or this, that thing, because obviously I come from a generation where processed foods being was the great thing because it was easy and it's lasted longer and stuff like that. So it was great to eat, and no one had really done their investigations into what it was, the issues that it could cause. And obviously, food, people don't realize, is one of the biggest contributors to health as well. It can, with ourselves, everything, every single day, if you're eating certain types of food every single day, you become lethargic. Your mind doesn't work as well. You become lazy, all those type of things. So it's all about now re-educating people into the fact that this is a product that no matter how old you are, where you're from, what you eat, it can help you because it can help you reduce your food waste in your own home. It can help you save money, and done properly, it will help you eat healthier. So it's more of a education at this moment in time for people, which we're trying to do. I had a meeting yesterday with Nova, the radio station, about starting to advertise and stuff like that on there. So I'm getting in front of into people's ears and getting that understanding and brand awareness of what we're trying to do. And as I say, my main focus now is letting people understand, having people understand what the platform is and how that can help them moving forward, not just look at it as being, as you said earlier, a recipe app, which we have 20 or 30 of every day, single day, you find them. We're trying to actually do it from a different angle and help people. And eventually, I'm hoping that type of story is something that people take on board and start actually downloading and using the platform for those reasons and not just thinking, oh, it's just going to give me, it's just there to give me recipes, because it's not, it's there to actually help you as a user.
It's actually recipes last, everything else before
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
I
And
think
it's the cost of
recipes is
living's
the
huge.
byproduct.
Yeah, the cost of living's huge at this moment in time. So everyone's struggling. Every household in the world pretty much is feeling the pinch of what's going on. And prices, I've noticed prices even before COVID and everything else. And I'm not dissing the supermarket because this is basically what happens in the world, around the world, in everything. But if you look at prices before COVID and then after COVID, they still didn't come down because what happens, we get used to paying that price. So why would you then lower the price on the products if you've already got your people, your customers paying that price? And so what happens is then all of a sudden you're used to paying that price that 10 years ago was astronomical, and you would never ever think of paying that price. Now you're paying it, you're used to paying it, and then a war breaks out. And then, oh, guess what? We're going to have to up the prices again because of these things. And well, guess what? When the war finishes and everything's back to normal, do you think those prices are going to drop? Or do you think they'll stay exactly the same? Because we're all used to paying those prices. So I thought to myself, well, it's putting pressure on every household. So at least if we can try and create something that try and reduces that pressure a little bit, helps them with that decision making, makes the people, helps people, educate people to understand that the decision that they're making themselves is what contributes the most to them having food waste, having to spend more and things like that. Not the supermarket, not just down to the supermarkets raising prices, because those prices, as I say, will stay pretty much the same. But if we can control ourselves in the sense of understanding that it's fine to treat yourself, have takeouts and stuff like that, but understand that don't buy the food on the days that you're going to have the takeouts. Understand that budget your week. So you think to yourself, okay, I've got 4 days or 5 days worth of food, and 3 days, I'm going to have 2 days worth of takeouts or going out for a meal. That way, food waste will reduce. Your cost of living will reduce as well because you're budgeted properly and things like that. And that's what we're building the platform for.
Like we always say, there's many, many layers to the
Yes.
app itself, but it started off as one thing, and then it's clearly become an ecosystem. Nutritionists,
Yes.
private chefs, a whole booking layer, reverse recipes, a health segment now. But when did it actually click that this was going to be bigger than what you originally said?
When I started realizing I had 3 or 4 apps for certain things myself, and I started going, well, whoa, why have I got 2 or 3 apps to do something when really it's all part of the same ecosystem? So can I not have something where I can go in, and I don't want to be class it as a one-stop shop because obviously there's more to it than that, but that's what I then realized, because why would I want to have three or four apps when I can build one that does everything for everybody, so to speak? And then, and that's how it's carried on. And then obviously I've got a team that come to me with ideas. I go to them with ideas, and then as I say, and that's one of the great things about it. And then we also have our users tell us. So we have things that we basically get our users to put on a notice board, or give us feedback. There's a question and stuff like that comes out, and they can tell us, I'd like this added, or I'd like that, sort of like, and these type of things. This has really helped me in what I do every day. And so we've done it that way. So we've listened to what our users have said, and then built the extra layers based on what we know they'd use, instead of us just going, I know, this sounds really good, so let's put it in there, because it doesn't necessarily always mean it'll get used. It's just a case of actually finding out what's going to help your users, finding out what's also popular. So I know obviously at this moment in time, people have gone to their nutrition and things like that. So we've gone, okay, why don't we build our own marketplace within the platform where you can book a nutritionist, book your personal trainer all in one place, because they're two sides of the same coin. They're the same. You basically go, if you're going to a nutritionist, half the time a nutritionist will say, go to the gym and do some training. And a personal trainer, and half the time will turn around and say, you need to go to a nutritionist, and they'll do all your dieting and we'll do your training. So I thought, well, let's put that into the same platform. So you can then book all that all at the same place. So that's what we're in the process of finalizing at this moment, just on the next update. And it means that, as I say, and then as the ecosystem builds for us, the nutritionist will be able to use our platform to give those recipes out that they're going to use. So here's your meal plan. That meal plan will go into the profile of the user, and then wherever you go in the world, if you're away on holiday or anything else, you have your meal plan there. You don't have to take it in a on a piece of paper. You don't have to take a leaflet or all this type of stuff, or download something. It's all there. And then if you're then in another country and you want to go to a personal trainer, you might have a training plan already done by your personal trainer here, and you can go to someone there and give them your training plan, and they'll go through it all with you. So it just means that the idea is it becomes a whole ecosystem around food, health, and wellness.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different use cases. I feel like it's not even just that one. It really depends on where do you use it, and then how do you prioritize you using the app. But I like the fact that you actually, as a founder, was prioritizing getting feedback, because a lot of the people I meet and speak to don't really think about it in the in-depth perspective, and which sort of tells me that you're one of the founders who are a bit more mission and purpose driven rather than revenue driven. Nothing wrong with being revenue driven, I
No,
will say, but
I'll eventually start being revenue driven, but at this moment, and my wife would like to be, let me just say, my wife would love me to be more revenue driven at certain points, but I also want to create something that gives people value first. So then obviously if you're getting the value of using it and understanding it, the more likely that you'll express to other people how good it is for you and all this type of stuff. And then that's when obviously you can start looking at building revenue. I think if you go with the revenue, trying to build revenue first, without actually understanding what your user wants and things like that, that's where a lot of apps fail, and or a lot of platforms fail, because they're not actually uh, they're building it for themselves. In certain respects, it becomes very much more of an egotistical way of doing it, more than actually building it for, as you say, for people and for a mission. And as I say, the mission is to actually help people more than anything else. I've told you this plenty of times. I grew up on a council estate in Liverpool, and so I grew up having lots of processed foods and things like that at certain times when I was younger, because it was cheaper and easier to do. And I had a single mum for a few years, and she'd work at double shifts at jobs and stuff like that. And I'd go to a carer, and half the time people don't care. It wasn't fresh food all the time and things like that. It was just the cheapest option. And so that's also something that I want to help people get out of, that mindset, because I understand that a lot of people are still in that situation. And people are, as I said earlier on, it's all about how much money, value of money, and making sure that the money that you've got is able to spread further and things. And it's educating people that by eating fresh ingredients, you can actually make more meals and actually have them stored and stuff like that, and eat healthier, but still do it through eating fresh ingredients and stuff. So yeah, it's a mission based. It's all mission focused at this moment in time. But as I say, my wife would like me to start thinking about monetizing things a lot quicker.
Well, I think what's unique about Snap the Cook and you, Marvin, is you've ran the app for 3 years, completely mission driven. And it's finally come to a point where it's like, okay, now my wife is saying I need to get some revenue in the door to see what the return is with all that effort and time and resources attributed to that motion. But I feel like it feels weird to you that now you're sort of a bit shifting towards having to be more revenue focused, because I don't think deep down inside, and I'm sorry to assume, but I don't think deep down inside that that's really what you set out to do. Because when we look at other apps by comparison or other platforms by comparison, they are almost working in the opposite. Okay, well, if it works for me, and exactly what you said before, they built it for themselves. If it works for me, other people might want it, right? But that's a might. That's a lot of resources to go into a might where you've proven that people want it, they use it on a daily basis. And I think the last time we spoke, you said there was like over 100,000 users worldwide.
We're getting close, so we've actually grown. We're closer to 250,000.
So that tells me.
Yeah, so we're getting, so everything's moving forward quite quickly and everything else. And yeah, and as I say, I've got a meeting next 24th with Health and Human Services Department in America. So about talking about food and nutrition with them and things. I've been on the calls recent with the Early Learning Australia about us getting into all the daycares and things like that to help them food waste and things, because that's a massive place for all those types of issues and help them bring the cost down. So my thought process was there with them is, if we can help you with saving money in areas there, that money then can be spent in better ways on education for young children growing up and things like that. So again, mission first, and not so much monetary. Very much mission first, and how can it help people is always what I'm trying to do first. And I've got the thought process that if you do things correctly and proper and for the right reasons, that hopefully the monetary side of things will just take care of itself. But that's my thought process. That's one of the, and as you say, yeah, that's always been what the mission's always been: help first, make sure that it's doing something to help people, and yeah, more than anything else. And then word of mouth gets around, which is what it is. Eventually, I might start spending money on marketing, and then all of a sudden, that 250,000 could be to become 250 million, and all of a sudden, then I'm sat there, and then we might have a different conversation totally, where I'm sat here, and I might be on a little yacht. I might be on a yacht somewhere saying, "You know what, Jenny? Yeah, it worked out quite well for me." But then, yeah,
But I like that you're in it for the long game, Marvin, because not a lot of people could actually survive mentally, financially, resourcefully 3 years, right? Like you really wanted to prove something, and that's something that's super rare. So don't.
yeah.
That's something I
Well,
definitely want to point out.
2024. So it's 2024 when we officially, I've been in my mind and doing it in on the background, but 2024 was when I officially started the AI side of everything, getting everything sorted there. And obviously, we haven't even talked about that side of it all, because that's one thing which proprietary owned by ourselves. We basically built the AI ourselves. We've not gone to a third party buying data points and things, data sets, which a lot of companies do. We've done it all ourselves. So we've taken the pictures, thousands of pictures of food from all different angles, tomatoes being crushed, chopped, sliced, all these type of things that people don't think about when it comes to food. You just think of an egg even. But then you've got to realize that for the AI to recognize stuff, it's got to be scrambled, it's got to be fried, it's got to be in full form, it's got to be boiled, it's got to be all these things poached for it to be able to recognize it in each single way of doing things and everything else. So it's taken a lot of time, and it's been, as I say, it's been worth it, because now that is one of the reasons why we're able to collect the data we can, because we're not using a third party, we're using our own, so we're able to collect that data and understand how our users are using the platform. And that eventually is something that I should imagine supermarkets and things like that will come to understand is quite an important part. It's not just about what have they bought, it's great, they've left the store. It's all about how yeah. So now it's a case of understanding what are they going to come back into the store for, and all these type of things, and what are they using once they get home.
Predictive, right? And I think what a layers of this really is comes down to user data. And I think that's also very unique take on how SaaS or app builders actually really think about the way that they serve. But also not only that, but from a commercial perspective, imagine if somebody came knocking down on your door, Marvin, and like Coles, Woolies, who shunned at the idea before. We would love to pay you millions of dollars for that data, And even though you hadn't charged anything upfront in terms of revenue to your users, you still, at the end of the day, made it on the back end. So you still can be a mission or purpose driven business with the commercial backing now, which means you've got so much data now to play with. Because one person, the user data to one person, the file would be massive if they're on there every single day. But
Yeah.
250,000 users, that's a massive.
So 200, we've got 2.1 million snaps, basically pictures, food pictures and things of recognition and things like that from that data and stuff like that. We've saved over, I think it's 2.5 million plates of food waste from
Wow.
things and stuff like that. So all of this data now that we're building and everything else, we've got that information. So that's now where I'm starting to see more people interested and understanding what we're doing, instead of it just being looked as being a recipe app. We can now actually turn around and say, well, no other recipe app in the world is picking this data up and this information up that we do. So it's obviously opens up more doors and more understanding. And that's one of the reasons why I've got this meeting with HHS, because I'm saying to them, there's a missing layer that everything else that you've created and everything's great. And I love the fact of what you're doing. And it's all about helping people with eating healthier and nutrition and everything. But that mission still stops at 5 o'clock, between 5 and 6 o'clock when you open a fridge, because that's where it is. It doesn't matter, right? As I said to you earlier, we could get all the data in the world about how we should eat, have a doctor's meetings, talk about it, but then you open your own fridge. No one's there in your ear telling you this is what you should eat, Jenny. This is your decision. And this is where things break down. And people don't realize that as much. And that's what we're trying to actually show people and educate people, that at the end of the day, the biggest point with everything, when it's supermarkets or anything else, it's at the fridge. It's at your own personal fridge. That's where everything happens. Supermarkets have the best intentions. They can run all these ad campaigns and these ads and things like that. But it doesn't mean that at 5 o'clock that's going to change how you're going to be. You might sort of like think about it for a couple of minutes, but if your day's been hard and you haven't got the thought, or I can't make a decision, you've got the vegetables, you've got the ingredients, you've got your meat or whatever all sat there, or you're vegan, you've got everything, and you're sat there, you're still turning around and saying, day's been hard. I can't be bothered. I can't make the decision. I'm going to get this or I'm going to get that. And the food in there gets wasted, and you've spent more money. So we're all about making sure that making people understand that, and making sure that if you've got our platform, you just take a picture. You can just take a picture of what you've got in your fridge, and we will then give you all the recipes that you can make based on what you already have. So then all of a sudden that decision doesn't feel as hard, because obviously you've had somebody help, you've had some inspiration, because that's what it's all about sometimes. It's just that inspiration of having that idea, and as I say, at 9:30 in the morning, you had every inspiration, every thought, and it's going to be great. But 5 o'clock, the day's been long. You've had meetings, you've had this, that, and the other, and you've done things, and all of a sudden you're tired, and that decision becomes harder. And that's what we're trying to help people with, and show that that is the most important part of the actual food journey. And for us as humans, it's the most important part, because it's where we make our own decisions. And that's the missing layer, as we call it, within what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah. So now, one last question before we wrap up, Marvin. You've been in rooms where it's obvious the move to take the offer walk when you didn't. I'm pretty sure someone's already offered you price tag.
Yes.
But hey, we would love to take
Yeah.
this data off your hands. What would you tell a founder about knowing when a number that looks huge but still is not the right purpose fit for you?
I think well, everyone's individual, aren't they? So some people might just go, yes, that's it. That's a great offer. I want to take it. But I've always had the thought process that this is just bigger than obviously just a quick little and in and out, so to speak. And I hadn't not completed the mission at all. So the mission was just starting. And even though we were getting all that data and things like that, to me, the mission wasn't anywhere near as big as it could be and then completed. And I didn't want to give something to somebody just for them to take data, because that's all it would have been. It was just basically, they would have been just taking all the data that we'd picked up, and then they could have just shelved the platform and not done anything else with it, but because they had enough data to move forward and do some other stuff with it. And so I wanted to make sure that the mission first is being done, help people, get people to understand that that's what the mission is, that helps them. And then if somebody comes in, obviously, with a bigger offer, which I should imagine it should do the way we're going, then I'll look at taking it a lot more. But at this moment in time, it's been a case of I don't think my mission was finished. I don't think what we were doing was completed, and I wanted to support my team as well. That supported me because they've been long nights, all that type of stuff. And then as a founder, if you just take the first offer that comes along and it makes you rich, and that's what it would have done. Would have made me very wealthy and being able to sort of like sit on a beach somewhere, but it wasn't going to help them. And if I'm going to do it, I want to make it in a position where it's helping the people that have helped me grow it as well and stuff like that. So that was one of my concerns as well. It got them more money than what they'd put in. Let's say that we wouldn't have got them to the
Huh.
point of where, yeah, they wouldn't have been retiring or anything else, or being able to sort of like they've been able to have a nice few holidays and stuff like that, but it wouldn't have got them to that next level. Whereas it would have done with us, but not them. So I want to, as I say, it's not just about me; it's about all of us that are on board and have pushed and have believed in what I've been doing. Because at the end of the day, at the start, when you've got those family and friends that have put in, you've got to remember that you want to help them as well. And that's what I'm trying to do. I want to make sure that they've done well.
Especially shout out to your wife for supporting you all this time. So special
Yes,
mention.
my wife is my biggest supporter and also my biggest backer
And critic at the same
and
time. 'Cause I
critic.
feel like
Yeah,
she would just
she's
tell you
everything.
straight, right? Like that
Yeah,
this
yeah, she's the one that tells me when I'm an idiot and when I'm not being an idiot. And she then sometimes goes, I don't know how the hell you've done that. And I say, I don't know either. And then there's other times she's gone, I don't know why the hell you've done that.
key difference, key difference.
Yeah,
But Marvin, this has been brilliant. I really love the fact of you sharing your different perspectives, why it's so important to remain a topic for households, small, whether you're close, far, near, like what gender you are, this still applies to you. And I think we still have yet a lot of work to do, like you mentioned before, because of that education piece. But I think that and I feel like you are moving in the right direction with the right support, the right resources. I know you'll get there. And there is a bit of a bias because you are obviously was born in Perth, Western Australia, but you've given everyone listening a completely different way to think about where the real value sits and
yeah.
honesty.
The company was born in Perth, Western Australia, not me.
Yeah, correct. We
I'm a
can tell
proud
by your
Scouser.
accent.
I'm a proud
We can
Scouser.
tell by your accent. Yeah.
Proud Everton fan. Proud Everton fan.
So, to everyone listening, go take a look at what Marvin's building with Snap to Cook and plenty more to release, no doubt. But have a think about your own version of a decision layer, the moment where your customers actually choose. But in the meantime, keep building meaningfully. If you're looking to get yourself your own access to Snap to Cook, you can find them on Google Play as well as the Apple Store, and they're on all socials. So go and find them. Send Marvin a message. Say, hey, we saw the podcast. Let him know. But Marvin, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jenny. As always, a pleasure.
Likewise.
Thanks.